skinny lover. You want a skinny lover. And so I find I have the wrong body. I have the wrong body, even though I have the right mind.
Good afternoon, hello everybody. It is week 2 at Global Music Match, and I'm delighted to be joined by singer-songwriter Shelley Segal. How are you?
Hi, Iona. I'm doing really well, thanks. How are you?
Good. It's been raining in Scotland all week. I'm really jealous of looking at the sun coming through your.
Oh yes, LA. Yep, we've got some very nice weather.
Look at it.
Out the window, palm trees. Not native, but iconic of Los Angeles.
It looks so nice. I'm sure that everyone watching this will be like, she's not in Scotland. So, to begin with, I was just thinking, I've had the pleasure of listening to some of your music, and I'm absolutely in love with your voice, the clarity, the expression, the conviction in which you put forth the narrative of the songs. It's just beautiful. And we'll get to the songs later. But some of the songs definitely sound more folky than others. Some a little bit more heavy with not like rock, but more like kind of indie influence. What would you yourself describe your music as?
I guess I feel like singer-songwriter, is a broad cover that includes a lot of the different elements. I actually I learned to sing in my father's Jewish wedding band, my father's klezmer wedding band. And so after we would play like the traditional sets, then we would play just a mix of top 40 music. And so I grew up singing pop and rock and even dance music. And then I would play like a little bit of jazz and folk in the, during the meals while everyone was eating. So I got that real, a very broad music education. I enjoyed the energy of all those different styles. So I think that, I do lean towards elements of folk, elements of rock and folk rock. And so, I think singer-songwriter sort of incorporates the folk. And then even some songs that have more jazzy chords and jazzy influences. And so singer-songwriter, I think, is a good coverall.
Brilliant. Well, when I was listening, I was like, I couldn't really pigeonhole it into anything. So singer-songwriter is great. And you did say that your earliest musical experiences were singing with your father's band. At what point did you realise that you wanted to be a singer and songwriter? Was it always the plan? Did you have any other pathways that you could have taken?
No, not really. I think growing up in that environment, I started performing with my father's band when I was 11, and I was just always surrounded by working musicians, and I used to do my homework at band rehearsals after school, and so it was just always something that I did and always something that I wanted to do. And as I grew and just found other pathways for exploring that just became the next step. It was never really something that I had to decide. I guess maybe after finishing high school, it was more like, am I going to formalize my studies and do music further education, which I did. I ended up going to Box Hill Institute in my city at home in Australia, and I studied for a few years, and I earned my Bachelor of Applied Music. And but it's always been what I've wanted to do.
That is really interesting. And of course, a BA in applied music covers such a broad range of genres, so it's really accessible for, in Scotland we have one that, traditional musicians go to, but likewise rock, pop, indie, it just covers everything. So you probably learnt so much there.
Yeah, it was great, and it was really fun because a lot of it was such a broad range of other students. I was friends with a classical opera singer and a metal guitarist, and so I got to meet and make friends with musicians from every different style and walk of life, and that was really that was part of the music education as well as the studies, just the friends that you made and connected and performed with. So that was I liked that, having that.
And a lot of people who have just seen your view of LA are probably thinking, hold on, what happened? So you were born in Melbourne in Australia, but you now, of course, live in LA. I was saying this also to Christina, but I think that as musicians, we're really inspired and influenced by our surroundings and our cultural identity. What has it been like living in two very different countries in terms of culture and history? And how has experiencing both environments influenced your musical development?
That's a great question. I think Melbourne, I always, coming from a Jewish community and a Jewish family, and, being part of that musical expression always made me aware of, like, in a way, I sort of grew up in two different musical worlds already while still living in the one city my whole life. And so, I already had that rich difference of musical traditions, which is like the pop, in Australia, a lot of the contemporary pop music we receive is from the UK and from the US. So in some ways, there's a lot of commonalities between the music of Los Angeles, at least contemporary pop music of Los Angeles, and in Melbourne. But what's great about Melbourne is it's a live music city, and it's very it's got its own flavor, it's got its own unique sound. There's an irony, there's a sarcasm, there's a cheekiness to the music there, and it's really got its own thing. And it was a great city to grow up in as a singer-songwriter, as a live performer. It was the kind of place where for my first original gig when I was 15, I could call up a local pub and book a set on a Saturday night, so it's really a lot of opportunities for live performers in Melbourne.
And of course, your management and your team is still based in Melbourne, am I right?
Yes, so I actually, I started my own record company with my father, who is a singer as well, as I mentioned, in his band, and a violin player. And we started our own record label together about 7 years ago now. And at first we started it just to release our own music, but eventually we grew into artist development, artist management, company, and a production house as well. So my father runs the side in Australia, and I run the Los Angeles side as well. And we license music from America to Australia, and from Australia to America. And yeah, it's been really fascinating learning the business side as well. And I think being a musician and a performer has informed my business decisions, and my business understanding has helped me with my musical decisions as well. So it's been great to have both of those elements in my career.
That sounds like a brilliant way to kind of one side informs the other side, and it's really great that your family's on board. I think that's absolutely wonderful. And you did say that you also started writing songs when you were 11, which is super young and super cool. What is your writing process? Do you prefer to write mostly on your own or collaborate in co-writes? What's the crack with that?
Well, when I first started writing at 11, it was very, it was all about the expression, and I had like these feelings or ideas or experiences that were built up in me, and I felt like I needed to get them out, and so it was very much just for myself and for my own expression. When I first started writing, I would just sing the melodies and the lyrics without any instruments. Eventually, I started composing on piano and guitar as well, which I picked up in my teens. And for a long time, I didn't like the idea of co-writing. I thought, I would look up some of my favorite songs on the radio, and I would see, they had 10 songwriters, and I thought, what's this? You only need one person to write a song. But actually, since moving to Los Angeles, so I started, I released my first album back in
2009.
That was the EP. So yes, but my debut album was in 2012, and it got a bit of traction here in the US, and that began my relationship with the US. So I started touring here about 8 years ago, and eventually moved here 4 years ago. So I've been stateside for 4 years now. And I'm sorry, Iona, are you editing this later or is it going to be?
I was hoping just to do it all the way through because I'm
Okay, cool.
bad at editing stuff.
I did forget I did forget the initial question.
Oh my goodness, don't you worry. You know
Okay.
what, the question was, yeah, what's your writing process? Do you write mostly on your own or with other
people? So when I first moved to LA, that was when collaborating and co-writing became a huge part of my process. As I realized that is a really, that's the way to sort of progress here, to meet other creatives that are working in the same area as you, to collaborate and do shared releases. And I loved it straight away. Like, it took me a few times to adjust, but then, now it's one of my favorite ways to write. I still enjoy just sitting on my own with my guitar and letting something come out, on its own. But that energy of having somebody else to bounce your ideas off and giving that energy back, I feel like it really, it really pushes things along. And also it means that you walk away with something that you wouldn't have been able to create on your own. And it's a combination of both of your choices. And I love it. It's one of my favorite ways to collaborate now. And I have a few people that are my favorite to write with. And I also do a lot of ghostwriting here in LA. So I'll write songs for other artists, either on my own or with, some of my favorite collaborators. And that's been, an interesting direction that is possible to take in Los Angeles.
That's really cool. I mean, I love that idea. I mean, it doesn't really happen in the folk scene and the trad scene so much in the UK. I feel like co-writes, you hear it about like in the Nashville scene where like they're always like getting together and writing. Like, I think that's really cool. Have you ever ghostwritten for a really famous musician?
Not anybody super famous. I did have a feature. I had a really great feature quite a few years ago now. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Carl Cox. He's actually from the UK, but he's like a legendary DJ. And I had a great opportunity to write a song with him and feature on one of his records. And it was a single that we did, and it was a drum and bass song, which was, I say that I grew up singing in all different styles, but probably the dance world was the only one that I hadn't really engaged with. And then I had this opportunity to collaborate in that area with some friends of mine, Josh Abrahams and David Carboni, who were the producers. And it was amazing experience. We had a remix done of the song that was #1 on the Beatport charts and won an International Dance Music Award. And so it was very exciting collaboration. And I got to perform with Carl on stage at festivals and at venues in Melbourne. We played at Stereosonic Festival to 30,000 people in the heat. And that was amazing. It was like the middle of summer. My dad was like in the front row, like I thought he was gonna get crushed by the crowd. It was super exciting, and it was very different than, any of the scenes that I'd been in before.
Mm-hmm. A lot of your songs send incredibly important messages, and I totally think of you as like a protest singer. And your songs deal with so many different themes and issues. But the one that stood out to me was the theme of body positivity, and sidelined from the 2015 EP Strange Feeling. It's a great song, so much so that it became a finalist in the 2016 Unsigned Only competition. Being artists, we are completely responsible for the messages that we are sending out there. And what message do you wish that you heard earlier in life from artists that you listen to?
That's a wonderful question. I think I heard the messages that I needed to hear, and that's really what has pushed me to become the artist that I am. And I grew up listening to, my father would give me these great pop singers to listen to when I was really young, like 6 or 7, and I loved Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey, and you know, those kind of singers with big voices and expressions, and I loved it. I would copy them and try to emulate them. And then I remember when I was 9 years old, I heard Alanis Morissette for the first time, and you know, this rock pop singer with, you know, this incredibly raw vocal and anger and all these emotions that I hadn't really heard expressed before, and it was so real, and it totally blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, you can say something, you know, with music. And that was sort of my first introduction to I guess like songwriting that could be subversive as well as just like expressive. And after that, I got into artists, more folky artists like Ani DeFranco,
who you have been likened to, you know, you've been compared to. That's a huge, great person to be compared to. But who
yes,
is your ultimate hero? I'm wanting to ask.
it's a really hard question. I don't think I have an ultimate hero. I have artists that, you know, that inspire me and push me, but I think having an ultimate hero is setting yourself up for disaster in a way. You know,
Well, maybe
because,
like a collective of people who really, really are like the top tree of your inspiration.
yeah, for me, it would be definitely Ani DeFranco, Alanis Morissette, Ben Harper, and Mark Kozelek. I really, really enjoy the music of Mark Kozelek. To me, that's like the pinnacle of song, like a combination of Ani and Mark, which is what I try to be. And in my mind, have not reached that yet, which is great because we have our whole lives to develop and grow to that point that we want to reach. But yeah, so for me, listening to those artists, they gave me a new perspective. They challenged the way that I saw the world, and you know, they said crazy things. I remember this one Ani DeFranco song called "Blood in the Boardroom," and it was about being the only woman at this you know, corporate label meeting, and she was sitting you know, on the chairs, and she got her period, and there was no one in the room that she could ask for a tampon because it was all men. And she went to she had to leave the meeting and find a receptionist and ask her, you know, found the only other woman in the building that she could ask for help, and she couldn't help her, so she said that she just sat in the in the chair and got her period blood all over the chair. And it was just like, you know, as a 11, 12-year-old girl, and all through my teens, hearing messages like that, where these things that are supposed to be taboo, that we're supposed to be ashamed of, and hearing them spoken about proudly, being a woman taking up space, and you know, anti-capitalist. She has another song about that where she stayed fiercely independent her whole career. You know, I'll be the million that you'll never make. It was very, yeah, it was incredibly eye-opening and inspiring to me, and I've, I guess, tried to emulate a lot of that in myself and in my own career. Obviously starting my own label in the same way, but I want to give that to people. I want to be part of that chain of music where I am passing on my own questions and learning as much as I can and questioning as much as I can, and passing on that new perspective to other people that was given to me, that shaped me and helped me to question the world that I was brought up into.
And I think that's what makes you an incredibly authentic artist with integrity. And I guess for me, the people that kind of made me question was, you know, like your typical like Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger and all those kind of more folky people.
Yes.
But saying that, you know, you've got a really significant back catalogue of great music, some albums, EPs, singles, you know. But due to COVID, we aren't going to see like your traditional album rollout anytime soon. You know, the typical album, record, tour, repeat forever. Lots of artists are probably going to be experimenting with the structure in which they release their music. What is your structure for music releases, both pre-COVID and then post-COVID? I'm interested in seeing how you operated before and how you're going to operate now.
Sure. Yes, it's a new time for us. I was sort of leaning towards releasing singles even before COVID hit. When that COVID hit, I ended up having a bit of a break, needing a break uh, from being an artist. Really, it was the first time in 10 years I felt like what was happening was bigger than the language I had at the time to speak about it, and I didn't want to say anything that didn't, speak to what we were all going through. And I think I just needed time for everything to consolidate, and so I took a break, and I feel much better for it. And also now I feel like I have a plan in mind. Like you say, you pivot and you find a new plan. So for me, I want to be releasing singles every month, every 2 months, just for the foreseeable future. And I do have one idea. There is one album that I am going to release. I started doing this year, at the beginning of this year, I started doing live stream songwriting with my subscribers on YouTube. So I go live on YouTube, and I give myself 90 minutes with my listeners, and usually between 90 and 100 people will come over the hour and a half. And we talk about, I say, what's everyone going through? What does anyone want to write about? What's happening in everyone's life? And then people, will talk to me about what they're going through or what they would like to express. And then when I find some commonalities between what everybody is experiencing, I get going and I start playing. And sometimes there's a musician in the audience who will say, "Oh, try the D minor." But usually it's just people giving their lyric and conceptual ideas, and so they can see me and hear me. And if I say, "Do you prefer when I sing this line, or do you prefer if I sing it like this?" Give people some options to be involved in the process, and yeah, people send through their lyric ideas, and I take the ones that I like that push me to the next spot. And then when we finish the 90 minutes, that's the song, whatever we've created. And it's amazing experience. And I think, this speaks to what I was saying before. When I started my process, just having that outlet for self-expression is so important. And it's like the most healing and meaningful thing that I have in my life. And so to be able to share that with other people, especially during this year, which has been like, so difficult for
Sounds
many
like
people.
a great project. Like, honestly, it sounds great.
It's so amazing, and I'm so surprised by what I come up, what we create. And it's different. It's a different experience than co-writing in the traditional sense that I described before. But because there's so many of us, and because of the time limit, I have to make choices that maybe there's a simplicity to what I create that I may not allow myself at other times, that actually I think maybe I should, because there is a beauty to simplicity, and especially with music. And so I really love the songs that we've created, and I always leave very moved and energized from what we create. And so I'm sort of thinking that when I have like 10 songs that I really, really love from this project, I would like to record them further. And after I finish the session, I usually record a live acoustic demo, super rough, and just put it up so that everybody who participated in the song can have a copy of it and listen to what they've, got to create. But yeah, when I have 10 songs that I love, I'll record them further and release an album of songs made in 90 minutes with strangers on the internet.
Well, that sounds absolutely like such a great project. And I'm sure that these people are getting catharsis from being part of the project as well. So it's a win-win, really. So your latest release, in terms of full, an EP release, was Holy, and it came out in 2019. And the songs they're just gorgeous. Totally love them.
Thanks, Iona.
So apart from all these singles and that album in the works, are we going to see any release maybe next week for Bandcamp Friday or something?
Probably not. I'm just going to be pushing my back catalogue. I do have a new song that will be coming out at the end of this month. I would have liked to have it in time for my week with Global Music Match and Bandcamp Friday, but no, just have my usual wares for sale. So yeah, please do come and support. But yeah, at the end of the month, I will have my newest song coming out.
So that is exciting, new song at the end of the month. However, one thing that I did find out about you online was that in 2014, you released a banger of a song called Morocco. I love it. It's a great song, super catchy, one of those kind of recitative chronological things. It's just great. But I believe it upset some people and there was a bit of controversy around it. What was that like?
You know, it's been an interesting experience throughout my career. From my debut album, not my EP, but my debut album had some controversy as well. I think when you know, I want to talk about things that matter to me, and I think, you know, people can take things in any which way. And so what happened with this song with Morocco, I wrote about my experiences traveling I had a very brief trip to Morocco, beautiful experience in Marrakesh and Essaouira with two of my girlfriends. And, you know, I was seeing what it was like for me as a tourist and my girlfriends as tourists in this place, and what an amazing, beautiful, colorful experience that was so easy and accessible for us, and compared with some of the experiences and I guess hardships that were facing the people that lived there and were providing this experience for the tourists. Now, I can't speak for any areas other than the cities that I went to, which, you know, are very touristic areas. But it just struck me, that contrast between, you know, what it was like for tourists and what it's like for the people that lived there. And so I guess I started to question my place there and my, you know, participation in the way that things happened. That things were happening there. And so it was questioning that. And there's a lot of, you know, drug tourism, problems with homelessness and child homelessness in that area. And so I was speaking to those issues in my songs, not from a place of judgment, but just observation. And again, yeah, questioning my own place in what was going on, and also questioning, well, what do I even have anything really that I need to escape from when this great escape is here available to me? And what happened was I released the song and I woke up in the morning to thousands of views and angry comments. And so something must have happened, and I Googled myself and I found an article in a Moroccan blog, and I had to Google translate it, and it said, young Australian artist denounces the kingdom of Morocco, which I had never done. And, well, I mean, not in the song. And so thousands of people had watched the video and listened to the song through the lens of that blog. And so it's interesting, you know, how you frame things will affect the way that people interpret them. So people would see the video rather than observation or an exploration, but as an attack, which I wasn't doing at all. And it was amazing. It was an amazing response, I think, as songwriters, as an artist, to get that kind of response, even though a lot of it was negative and very, you know, aggressive. Some people said some mean things to me on YouTube. But, you know, even though a lot of it was negative, I was very glad to get that response to my work. And I felt like I'd hit a nerve, which, you know, means I think that I was on something. And, you know, the Australian press was writing about it. The Moroccan World News was writing about it. And there were some great pieces, you know, where people in Morocco were saying this is actually a great way to talk about the issues that we're facing. And we want to have tourists come in, but then we don't want to talk about these issues and those experiences. So it was, you know, I think there was a lot of really great discourse that came up around the song, which is something that I was really proud of. And that's something that I want, you know, I want music to create discussion.
And that is just testament to the fact that as an artist, you are a very critical thinker, and that is a good thing. Being an artist and having, you know, being able to be a critical thinker, that's the most important thing in terms of being an artist. So no, I just thought it was really, really interesting. And you have done a tremendous amount of touring in the UK, Hong Kong, China, US, among others. What places places have been your favourite places to tour in? I mean, there's probably loads.
Well, yes, I guess I love the US, and that is part of why I've ended up here. I think it's an amazing country to tour. It's so different. Every state to the next. It's basically a different country, and the population really makes it possible to tour every night. You can play in a different city, in a different town, and you could do that for the whole year and never play in the same place twice. And I'll go on the road here for 3 months at a time with my husband, who plays guitar with me. So we usually perform to acoustic guitars and vocals. And yeah, I love touring the US, and I love getting to see the different sides of the country. I have had a lot of fun touring in the UK as well, and I would like to branch out to get to experience more countries in Europe. So I'm hoping once everything lifts, when things change, I would love to get to explore a bit more of Europe.
Absolutely. So yeah, you mentioned briefly before there was a huge gig that you did. One of your other notable performances was to a crowd of 30,000 on the National Mall at Washington DC. What would you consider your other kind of notable performances?
The performance you mentioned, that was an amazing experience. My debut album, I wrote about becoming an atheist, actually, which was a very significant experience for me, growing up in a Jewish community and a Jewish tradition. And my faith was something that was very important to me. And so, furthering my education and for the first time challenging the ideas that I had grown up with was, a very intense and also significant experience for me. And that was when I discovered the value of critical thinking, and I started to write about my experiences of what I had been through and how that had changed my worldview, and which values had stayed the same, and what my new values were, and my newfound way of seeing the world. And I wrote a whole album about the experience, and it was amazing at that time when I first started touring here. That album and that sentiment and that change of worldview really resonated with a growing secular movement here in the US, it's happening worldwide as well, but particularly here in the US, I was able to come and perform for a lot of different organizations. Conventions and different activist organizations, support groups, political organizations. Just there's this grassroots movement here towards secularism and just protecting civil rights. There's a lot of people, depending on where they live in the US, particularly in the South, where if you're not the right religion, you can face job discriminations. You can face discrimination in family law. With access to your family. There's all sorts of ways in which the separation of church and state is being pushed back here. And so there's a huge movement of amazing grassroots activists who are fighting to change that. And so it was an incredible experience to, in a way, provide like the soundtrack to what a lot of those people are working on. And so I got to perform at the National Mall for the Reason Rally, which was a huge rally for in Washington, D.C. for secularism. And I mean, yes, it was amazing to play to that many people, but the coolest thing was knowing that everybody was there for a similar reason to what
they were
I was
like-minded
singing about.
like-minded folks.
Yeah.
This song had become a theme tune, the title tune of a specific a weekly and monthly TV show.
Yes, one of my songs, one of the singles from that album, has definitely become a bit of a theme song for the movement, used in a very popular show called The Atheist Experience. So that's been incredibly rewarding and meaningful to be a part of this movement in this way. And I feel like it has several important uses, like for people who have maybe felt isolated and alone and misunderstood. There's this music that speaks to their unique experience and expresses maybe for them, makes them feel understood, and then also expresses for them what they may have not been able to put into words in that way, also in a way that is, I guess, more accessible. You know, a lot of people don't want to listen to a lecture or hear a rant or read a book or watch a debate, but to hear a musical expression of their position is a unique thing. And I think people are more open to hearing ideas that they disagree with when it's, you know, through music, maybe disguised with a pretty voice. and so that's been very meaningful to provide that for people. And I've gotten that feedback from people about how important it has been to hear their views represented in music. And then, yes, for people that don't understand and don't agree and don't share that perspective, it can be a bridge of like, okay, well, you know, that's not how I see the world, but I can understand maybe the beauty in the way that you do see things, and I can understand, you know, and now I'm humanizing those beliefs as opposed to othering them.
Yeah, I think the humanizing and making it into a musical manifestation really makes it more accessible to people who maybe are of the, you know, the flip side opinion. So I think that is really cool.
And I've experienced that myself. You know, I mentioned that Ben Harper is one of my favorite artists, and he has a lot of, you know, religious music, and, you know, some that when I was younger, you know, really resonated with me because of my beliefs. But as I got older and challenged some of those beliefs, even though, you know, those songs don't make sense in the same way to my worldview as they did, they're still so beautiful to me. They're so moving. I can understand the perspective behind them and the desires and the drive behind them for a want for a better world, even if we may disagree about why or how, you know. So I find it works the other way as well, where, you know, I'm able to listen to and appreciate music that I don't agree with, but can, you know, identify with the honest expression behind it.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Well, this is your week. It is week 2 of Global Music Match. And at the end of this week, well, not at the end of this week, on Saturday, 12th of September at 6:30 PDT time, that's not UK time, that is definitely not UK time, you're doing a live stream, and people can get tickets for $10 from playfi.com/truemusic/8. So yeah, that's really exciting. Have you done much?
Yes. I did one last month, and it's a friend of mine who runs Playfi, and he's testing this new live performance platform, and I love it. There's a lot of opportunities for fan engagement and audience engagement that I haven't seen in other platforms before. I was telling you earlier, you know, they have an applause option. So, you know, sometimes in the live stream of performances that I've been doing this year for different events, you know, I think the hardest part is when you finish the song and there's no feedback from the crowd. So this is really fun. People can click applause and you can see everyone laid out. And so, yeah, I love, I'm really enjoying, you know, exploring this platform with my friend Playfi, and we're working on adding new elements all the time. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing that, and hoping to have, I'll be performing, my husband will be accompanying me, and we should have some special guests, some of my co-writing collaborators as well for this performance.
That's really exciting. So that's on Saturday 12th, which will be the Saturday of your week. This week, if I'm talking all correct. Also, like many musicians, you've really been focusing on growing your own Patreon community, likewise myself included. What's been the biggest challenge for you that you've had to overcome with the shift from touring and real life work to working at home, creating content for Patreon?
Well, I think I started my Patreon when I first moved to the US. So it's about 4 years old now that I've already been building it. And, you know, I try to share content. I have been previously sharing content. Before COVID hit, I was sharing content every week, which I was able to do because, as well as my music and that I'm releasing, I'm also working on so many different other projects, like, the ghostwriting. And so I'm able to share a lot of different creations with my patrons. And then also, because I write so much, and one thing I loved about it was in the past, if I wanted to make an album, I would write a bunch of songs, and then I would, sift through however many songs I'd written and whittle it down to a small amount, and then choose those for the recording, and then go to the studio and do the pre-production, and then do the release and the marketing. And so by the time from the composition or the idea of the song is created until my fans get to hear it, it's like years. Whereas now with Patreon, I was able to just write a song, and then the next day play an acoustic demo version for my fans and just say, hey guys, I just made this. Like, this is what it's about. Do you like it? Do you think it could, do you think it should be on a project? Or what do you think about it? And just to get that instant feedback, I think has been something really pleasant for myself and for my fans and patrons as well.
That is absolutely lovely. I really like that whole idea. That's what I like about using Patreon as well, is that I'm doing things that I would never have kind of done before, and getting that kind of communication from the people who are supporting me. So I think I'm going to finish up now, but if you could give yourself some advice, or your younger self some advice, what would it be?
I think I would just say keep going, which I have, and she did. Little Shelley, well done. You did. You kept going. I'm very proud of you. But I think, it would just, this year has been, just recently I've started to see how the things that maybe mistakes or failures have, that at the time had been so full of despair. I see the ways in which I needed to go through them to learn, to understand, to get to the next level. And somehow, because I think as artists, there's no clear blueprint, there's no exact plan of how to get to the next stage or the next level or where you need to be. And often you don't even understand exactly what that stage is. Like, I've known since before I couldn't remember that this is the life that I want to lead, but I didn't always understand, and I still don't understand exactly what that will look like at every stage. I have there's certain goals that I have, and I try to create them, plan, set the goals, follow through, and create that reality, but you don't always understand what it will look like exactly. And so I guess sometimes when you're forging a path that hasn't been forged before, because every artistic journey is so unique, you almost feel like every step is a mistake, because it is. Every step that you make is going to have mistakes in it, because you can't execute something perfectly that you've never done before and don't know how to do. And so I guess I would tell myself, go easy on yourself, and don't stress the mistakes too much, because you have to do that to progress, and rather to see them as mistakes, see them as opportunities to learn.
Oh, well, that is actually some brilliant advice to your younger self, and brilliant advice to other people out there. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me. So, as I said before, Shelley is performing a live stream show on Saturday, 12th of September at 6:30 p.m. PDT time. Tickets are $10 and can be purchased at payfi.com/truemusic/8. She's also on Patreon at patreon.com/Shelley Segal. And you can find out a whole load more about her on her website at shelleysegal.com. So thank you so much. I've been Iona Fyfe in conversation with Shelley Segal.